Okay, well, welcome everyone to this meeting of the virtual CICS user group. I'm Trevor Eddles. I'm CEO of iTechEd Limited. We're a mainframe consultancy, analysis and technical authoring organisation, and we're responsible for the content on the virtual CICS website, and we produce the newsletters as well. And the website can be found at virtualcics.hostbridge.com. I'm just going to let some more people into the meeting. Okay. Right, so let's have a look at the agenda. As usual, most of the meeting will be taken up with a presentation, and today our guest presenter is Colin Pearce, and he's going to be demonstrating collecting and analysing CICS statistics. More people to admit. Okay. A copy of well, there aren't any slides from Colin today, so there will be a copy of some screenshots and things available, but they'll probably be there early next week. Like I say, most of it's going to be a demonstration. But the recording will be available for those of you who want to watch it again, or for people who miss it. That will be on our YouTube channel. So what else? That's the presentation. Yeah, any questions? There is a chat box. If you type in there questions, I'll pick those up and I'll put them to Colin. Then we've got news, and we've got articles and blogs. Then we've got feedback requests, which is there to remind me to ask you for any feedback about the meeting. And then we'll have a look at the dates and times of the next virtual meetings. So that's the plan for this meeting. I'm anticipating that it will last for something around an hour. So, as I just said, today's presentation is from Colin Pearce. Colin has been a ZOS and CICS systems programmer for over 30 years, and he's been teaching for more than 20 years. He's worked in permanent and contract roles. He's installed CICS and related software many times. He tells me he's well versed in the application side of CICS using command level and with CICS debugging in both transaction level and CICS system dumps using IPCS. He's written many CICS courses, CICS for systems programmers, CICS transaction debugging, CICS command level programming, CICS internals. And he also knows and understands newer facilities in CICS, such as web services, thread safe, etc. And he's also done loads of other stuff and loads more experience. But I think because of the time, let's hand over to Colin. So can I thank you very much for being with us today, Colin? And if you want to share your screen, I'll let you take control and take over.
Okay, thanks, Trevor. I hope everyone can hear me, and hope you can see my screen. Firstly, as Trevor said, I'm Colin Pearce. You can find me on LinkedIn if you aren't already there. I'm happy to accept you, and you know, you can create a relationship. I do a lot of articles on LinkedIn, so on different areas and different things. So hopefully I can help you in that sense. I do a lot of training for with Verhoef, VERHOEF, Verhoef training. They're based in many countries, but including here in England. We do a lot of virtual training, and they're an IBM supplier of training materials. So if you want an IBM course, then go through Verhoef, and maybe I'll be doing the teaching. Today, we're going to be looking at the way we collect statistics in CICS, and also the way we can analyze them and print them out, and maybe have an idea of the sorts of things we want to look for when we deal with statistics. You know, there's many areas And of course, we've only got about an hour, a little less than an hour. So once we get to the statistics, I'll try and pick out the important areas to have a look at. But firstly, let's have a look at how we want to collect them. Okay, so I'm going to clear my screen. And the first thing we need to do is to do the monitoring, CEMN, okay? And in order to have the statistics as well as the normal type 110 records being sent to SMF, we must turn the recording on. Okay, so make sure your monitoring status is set to on through CEMN. That's the first thing to do. Out of there, clear the screen. And then we're going to CDA, okay? Now the list I'm using is this one, XYZ list. Okay, so these are all the groups there. And if I go forward, you can see that there is a, where is it? Towards the bottom, you can see there is a group which is DFH $stat. You must make sure that is in your list. Okay, so just do an add of that group to your current list. Make sure that's there. And that way then you'll have access. I'll just show you that group. So you know what's there. DFH $STAT. All right. Make sure you've got this there because you'll be running the stat transaction. So if you don't have it in your list or it's not installed, you won't be able to run it. So now understand that anything with DFH $, and there's many of them, they get created when we initialize the CSD, but they don't get added to DFH list. And sometimes you can miss them because once you create your own list, you do an append of your own list from DFH list, and you just forget about what else could be on the CSD. And so DFH $stat is something that you should add in into your region, and therefore then you can utilize it, and I'll show you that. So mine is there. If I come out of here, if I clear the screen and I do a stat, then you can see that the statistics program is there. And so you can see we're running CICS TS53, the SysID current statistics recording is off. So you can see that this is what we will be looking at when we've collected some statistics. Okay, so I PF3 out of here. Okay, clear the screen. And I go into CEMT, inquire on stat. And this is the statistics invocation that we want to do here. So statistics are something that I really encourage you to use once we've gone through this hour. Hopefully you'll have a better understanding of how to use it. I really encourage you to use it, at different times of the day when you think, there's going to be some good information. So when I do an on here, okay, it's turned on, and you can see that the interval is on 1 hour. And what that means is if I come down to the time, you can see we're at 0940. Okay, but obviously it's a different time to what the current time is. But what it means is that it will actually collect the statistics that it's collecting at the moment at 10.00 at 10 o'clock. They will be sent to SMF automatically. Okay. Now I can decide here when to end it. So if I wanted to end it, this would be just hours, minutes, seconds. When I wanted to end the actual collection of the stats. So I might want to collect it for 5 minutes during a particular heavy time. I might want to collect it for an hour because I want to look at really the overall system. So it would be up to me how I want to see this and how I want to collect it. Okay, so I leave this on, and you need to stay with it. You know, don't go off to lunch and just leave it on, because you need to have it on for a purpose. Okay, so as you see here with the time the way it is, this will only be updated when I hit enter. See, we're now at 9:41. Right, we're still on. But once I've collected some stats, then what I can do is I can specify off here. And that statistics then will stay there. The only other thing you need to do is, if I go to, this should work. I just tested it. Just a second, I'll just stop the share because it's just a second. Just bear with me. Just bear with me. This always happens. It's okay. I was going to go to the CICS Explorer. So I will do that. No, this should work fine. Okay, so I'll go to the CICS Explorer. So just let me log on, and then I'll bring you back in so that we can be there. Okay, so let me bring you back in now to the screen. Okay, just a second. Now I'll switch the screen and come back in. If I go to the CICS Explorer, hopefully you can you still see my screen? I hope everyone
can we can see your screen.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, so I've actually logged on to CICS Explorer and I've got the region up here. Okay, if I right click here, I can show the SIP parameters, something you can't do with CEMT. Then I can show the sysin parameters here. And the only yes,
I'm only seeing your Rocket Terminal emulator, not the Explorer.
Oh, okay. So obviously it's a little bit different. Let me just go in again and pick this one up. How's that? Hopefully you can see my CICS Explorer now.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks.
Okay. So if you go to CICS Explorer, you look at the SIT parameters, the ones from sysin, you need to have spooling. You can see, sorry, it's a bit small, but you need to have spooling set to yes. All right. So what I do anytime I define a new CICS region, it's just one of the things I specify anyway, whether I need it or not. So just specify spool equals yes, and then you can check it out under the CICS Explorer and just make sure that this is what you're seeing. Okay. Once you've got that in place, then we can basically I'll have to stop the screen share because it's in the way of me being able to do that. Yes, it just covers the area. So let me screen share again. And I just wanted to show you that so that okay, so this one. Okay, so I've turned the statistics off. Hopefully you can see that. Let me stop the share and make sure you can see it. It doesn't always come with us. So hopefully you can see back inside the CICS region again. So I've checked to make sure that the monitoring is on. I've checked to make sure that I can run the stat transaction by having that group part of the DFH $stat group, part of the current list. I've installed it. And I've set my statistics on by doing an inquire stat, turning it on, and then just run it for a few minutes just to show you the demonstration. Once it's off, then I can come out of here, PF3 out of there, clear the screen, and then I type in stat. All right, then all I need to do is just hit enter. And what this should do is it tell me statistics print successfully completed. So what it's done, it's sent the statistics to my, where are we? It sent them here. So if I go into my CICS environment here, hit enter, and the statistics will be down the bottom under S00002. So I'll just select that, and there's all the statistics that I've captured. Okay, so this will, this is a kind of a quick snapshot of the CICS region, and it tells you just environmental information. Okay, and the sorts of things that you would have specified to bring your CICS region up. But if I do a find on cushion, I just want to cover a few things that you should be looking at. And the cushion size, one of the areas of concern in any CICS region is EDSA lim. Do we have enough dynamic storage area to cater for the current workload? The default for EDSA lim is 800 meg. So that's nearly half of what the total amount that's in the address space. In fact, it's more than half of what you'll get anyway, because I'll be surprised if you get any more than 1400 or 1500 meg in the 2 gig allocation, because above us is MVS systems. So we won't get any more than that. Well, I've never been able to get any more than that. So one of the things we need to look at is the cushion size and this one. Whoops, where are we? Let me just come down here. Because the cushion size is the amount of storage. It's usually 10 to 20% of the total amount of DSA storage, EDSA lim. When the cushion has been released, and you can see here we've got 0, which is excellent, it means then that the internal storage manager transaction, which is SMSY transaction, starts to panic because it realizes it doesn't have enough storage. And so every time you get the cushion released, you know that you're up around the upper layers of the EDSA lim allocation. So what we want to see is 0 here, and the time short on storage, we want to see 0 here, and the number of times, the average short on storage times. So because these are very critical areas, if you can get a sort of a report on how the cushion is being utilized, as long as it's not being released, then you have essentially what CICS would determine as being the right amount of storage that you can utilize. Once you start getting times cushion released, then depending on the number, then you are running short on storage, even though you may not get the message coming up. So you can preempt this situation by getting an understanding of the way storage is being utilized and whether you're reaching the sort of end of that area. Now, if you're in CICS Explorer, it will list the cushion for you anyway, which you don't get through CEMT. So because I use CICS Explorer mostly now, I get these sorts of values, but the statistics will tell you what happened since since this CICS system came up, what values are there. And so you can see the short on storage. If I see 0, I'm very happy, because I don't want to see short on storage messages. You know what they can do to anybody. It calls, the messages to get sent out to the console, and everybody seems to know about them, and CICS slows down. And so the cushion being released is a good litmus test, if you like, to tell you that I'm really up against it, and although we don't know immediately what the value is, I could look through the storage manager domain internals and find out what the value is. I mean, that can be done, but from a statistics point of view, I'm looking at 0, and that way then I can know that my storage allocation for EDSA lim is going to be enough. And you can see here I've got both below the line. Let me just go back. This is the private area available below 16 meg, and also I've got above 16 meg too. So again, this is above 16 meg here, EDSA limit. And you can see again, I've got cushion release 0, short on storage 0. So these are the values that I'm really interested in seeing. And it does it by individual DSA as well. You can see the CICS DSA here, the user DSA, or the extended CICS DSA and extended user DSA. The other thing it gives you is storage violations. And, you know, this is what you want to have is 0 as well. And so with good practices in terms of your allocation of storage, and I'm often called to give my best practices of how to minimize or eliminate storage violations, then a couple of things you can do is make sure that your get mains, your exec CICS get mains do not specify, I should say, absolute values. Always make it the O1 level for the linkage section for your COBOL applications. And also, let's move away from COM areas and start to use channel and containers, because then all that storage is above the bar and it's managed by CICS. You can have as much as you like. So, you know, storage violations, you know, CICS does its thing to try and minimize, but we can also help by coding our applications now using channel and containers rather than COM areas, and that will help us there too. So as we go forward, right, you can see it's really you know, amazing. We can look at mem limit, we can look above the bar, we can look at the grande DSAs that live above the bar. There's 3 of them that live above the bar. So we have the CICS and user and just the GDSA that sits above the bar. And so you can look at that, but generally that shouldn't be quite much of a problem, because we've only got things like channel containers, the CICS trace, temporary storage above the bar at this stage. As we move down, you can see the different DSA sizes. This is the grande DSA. As if I go back, where are we? Hit the wrong key, I'm sorry. If I go back, we can see the DSA sizes here, and we can see how these are managed. Coming forward, once we get through there, we get a lot of the subpools. You can just ignore the subpools because there's, you know, 300 of them, over 300 of them. It's just subpools where different parts of the CICS region get allocated from. So you can really you can work out what particular subpool is being used for what particular system, but it just takes such a while. So it's mostly in alphabetical order. So we can come down with our storage stats and just leave it there. Just coming back, I wanted to show you our TCB utilization. Okay, so if we come down to the dispatcher domain deals with TCB modes. So you can see here that we've got the quasi-reentrant TCB. There's only one of those. So the current is 1, the peak is 1, well, good, because there's only one. And you can see how many times it's been used. If I'm looking at these sorts of numbers here, if I'm looking at these sorts of numbers, I would say that ThreadSafe is not installed, because I would see the L8 and L9 TCBs have significant numbers here. The L8 TCB is being used by both DB2 and MQ. And so this happens whether you're thread safe or not. So in a typical non-thread safe environment, I would expect that what we see here is a non-thread safe environment where most of the CICS activity, all the exec CICS commands are being active under the quasi-reentrant TCB. So when I see these kinds of numbers, it makes me a bit worried in terms of this percentage, because I think, well, potentially, because there's only one of these, we could get weights on the QRTCB. So the application's ready to do its next bit of work, next piece of work, yet it can't get the QRTCB simply because there's a transaction or task already occupying it. So that would make me think, you know, let's look at ThreadSafe and see if we can break up some of this and move some of the programs from the quasi-reentrant TCB down into the L9 TCB. Now, the L8 and L9 TCB follow storage protection. So if you've got storage protection active, then you've got the CICS storage and the user storage. So you've got the L8 for CICS storage and the L9 for user storage. So I would expect to see, if this is thread safe, I would expect to see significant numbers here, as I've said. And that means then that my thread safe is installed and working. And of course, I define thread safe from the definition of the program. I can specify under the concurrency, I can specify thread safe or required to make my application run on the L9 TCB. How many of these do I get? As many as you want, because I believe with CICS 5.5 now, it could be 5.6, I forget where these things come in, but the max TCBs now is managed by max task. So if your max task is 300, potentially you could have 300 TCBs here. Of course, that's not what's going to happen, because a TCB runs on the CP and there's only so many CPs in the LPAR. If you do a D space M equals CPU, let me do that for you so you can see this. If I go into SDSF here, okay, and I do a D space M equals CPU, okay, then it tells me how many CPs. In this case, I've only got the one, but under ID, I would see 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, depending on the LPAR I'm in. And so if I'm in a production LPAR, I would expect to see any number of these under there. And then of course that maximizes my potential then for using thread safe, because then thread safe programs will run on these individual CPs, because each CP has a PSW. It also has the execution set, which is the machine instructions, and also has the general purpose registers. So every one of these 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, all the way up will actually tell me that this is the kind of workload that I can push through here. So that, that makes it very, very exciting in terms of being able to quantify the reasons why I want to go thread safe. So I look at this and I think, well, there's no thread safe happening here. And so that, that's pretty sad in this situation with these percentages. I can see mostly is quasi re-entrant. And because only one of these, we want to relieve this as much as possible. At the moment, the only exec-CICS commands that still use quasi re-entrant, to my mind, is terminal control, which is send and receive, and exec-CICS return. So we'll need the quasi re-entrant to actually end the transaction. So be very careful. And what I would do when you do go thread safe to alleviate the quasi re-entrant, do a lot of tracing and just make sure that LE is not also sending CICS back to the quasi re-entrant TCB. Because if you say in the program definition concurrent is required, then the program actually starts on the L9 TCB based on its definition of user, the exec key. It'll start on the L9 TCB and it'll stay there until it needs to switch. And if it gets an exec SQL, it'll switch to the L8 TCP and run there, and then switch back to the L9 TCB. This is not a free lunch, because what you want to make sure is that you don't do too many TCB switches. So if you're going to do an exec kick something, then you're going to do an exec SQL, then you're going to another exec kick something, then some COBOL, then exec SQL. If you're going to flip between the two, then CICS will switch you automatically between the L9 and the L8 TCB, and then back to the L9 TCB. The number of TCB switches is mapped by CICS and also MVS. So when a TCB switch happens, it's written out to SMF. So you can get the total number. And it's estimated that a round trip, if I went from L9 to L8 to L9, a round trip is about 4,000 CPU instructions to do that. So, that's not shabby. So if you're going to do lots of those within the application, your your goal is to get the least number of TCB switches for the application. So really you would want things like, you know, exec-kicks, 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 exec-SQL, and then exec-kicks, 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 exec-SQL. So you want to sort of break it up like that. Of course, that's tough because programmers don't really work in that kind of mode. But if you are getting a lot of TCB switches when you report on that, the chances are that it's because the patterns of exec-kicks and exec-SQL are causing the switch between L9 and L8 TCBs. Okay. The other thing, just while I'm here, is the EP. This is for the event processing. Event processing allows you, very briefly, it allows you to be able to put either inside or outside of your CICS applications reasons why you want to know about this event. So let's say you want to know when a data set opens or when it doesn't open, for example, a critical data set doesn't open. You can set up an event to say that when this data set opens, send a message to, you know, who do you want to send a message to? Send an email to somebody that this particular resource, you know, didn't fulfill its normal process. Now, events can only be created using CICS Explorer. They're not a CDA type thing. And events can only be part of a bundle. And bundles can only be created through CICS Explorer as well. But event processing is really becoming very powerful in that you can put it inside the application with an exec-kick signal command, or you can simply put it outside the application. And, you know, the event list of what you can do an event on is quite extensive. So you can pick the one you want and then do whatever you want on that event. And usually you want to inform somebody. So the event is then built into the bundle when you create the bundle through CICS Explorer. Okay, so I just wanted to, you know, while I'm here, to give you some of those areas of concern. And then what you can do is, as you go down and you look at some of these areas, you can see what areas are being used for the TCB, and you can see then the private storage areas being used below the 16 meg line. Okay, so, you know, this is what we see here, and then we come on down, and then the default stat transaction program, it will not do file the way it comes supplied. It will not do LSR pools, and it won't do connections. In order to get that information, you either change the program, and if you go to the SDFH SAMP data set, it's got the CICS stat program there, DFH 0 stat, STAT, and there you can modify it to put in your own exec CICS collect, which is the way it collects the statistics. So you can modify it there. If you don't want to do that, then what you can do is you go back to the CICS environment here, come out of what, clear the screen, and you may want to then send your own statistics to SMF. Whoops. So if I do a perform here, we're familiar with perform because we shut it down. So if I do an ST, okay, it will send all the statistics, because that's the one, that's default. But these are all the statistics that it will send to SMF. And of course, you can report on any of these. You know, there's no point in reporting on, you know, the event binding. You're not doing that. Event process, you're not doing that. But they're all part of the event processing. But you can report on transaction and, you know, web services such as web service, URI maps, pipelines. You can, here's LSR pools. So it will send all the data that you've collected out to the SMF data set. Then what you need to do is to, let me switch screens again and go to this one. Then you come to this particular 2 steps. Because now we want to get at those statistics in SMF. And we can get at them because the normal performance and monitoring SMF data goes to type 110 subtype 1. Statistics goes to SMF under type 110 subtype 2. And so as you can see there, we've got then, I'm unloading the SMF data. So I need to know what SMF data set is the current one, the one that the statistics were sent to. And then I need to just have my own work data set that I can set up here, depending on the size of it. Now, you can see the program here. If you're using the original type SMF data sets, you know, man X, man Y, then you need IFA SMF DP. If you've converted your SMF to log streams, then you need IFA SMF DL. So depending on which SMF data set that you're using, or the structure of it will be the one that you'll use here. And then you just say options dump. You then output is where our out DD1 is going. So you can send that out, new catalog, so you can create it here and unload type 2 into this data set, user id.smf.data.ad here, or data D. And then we come down to, I'll just bring this down. We come down to DFH STUP, very, very powerful utility, which will print off those statistics based on what you want to see. And you can see here, as long as you've got your step lib sorted out correctly, STUP is in SDFH load. Don't really need SDFH auth here, but I've just put it there just to identify it. And then I can select the Apple ID that I want. You can see here I'm selecting, in this sense, CICS52, and in this run, I want to select transaction and file. Okay, and if I now look at the other, my statistics, what I do, let me just do this and come to 3.4. I want to look at everything I run. I do an XDP to my listings file. So I come out of SDSF. So I can come here, for example, okay, and I can say, well, I want to keep this data. So why don't I do an XDC and I can write it to my listings data set under a member name that means something. So I can go back and look at it later. This is very useful because if I collect my statistics in this way to a member of a PDS, a source PDS, then I can build up some kind of trend analysis. I can write a Rex routine to look at this output and print off the things that I'm interested in, such as my storage cushion that I've just been talking about, such as my TCBs that I've talked about. So I can get a real understanding of what my system is doing over a period of time by just running it through a Rex process. I can write an assembler program to do that as well. But that way, then I can build up some real analysis of what's happening to my storage areas. And that way I can then make decisions based on that analysis as to whether I should increase EDSA lim, or maybe I need to decrease it. Maybe it's something I can go the other way. But if I need to increase it, I'm doing it at a time when I don't have a problem. If I make that decision, I'm seeing this trend analysis happening by writing off the stats to my listings file, running it through a Rex procedure, and then I'm seeing then the output of that. I can build up what's happening to my storage areas. And so therefore I never see another short on storage. And if I was going to see one, I can then build another AOR if necessary, because the load is increased in my application. Okay, so that kind of makes it a lot easier for me to preempt or predict what's going to happen in these sorts of situations. And not only that, when I come to my DFH stat, now let me just go back and print that off just a second while I go out of here and I go into here. I'll look at my listings file. Let me just pick that up for you. Okay, so I come back to here and I look at my listings file. Okay, and I can then view everything that's been kept there. Why aren't we seeing this here? My listings file. I was in the wrong region. Okay, now when I come down to here, if I say, select all, then I can actually print off all the data. If I say, so what I'm doing here, let me just show you. If I go back to here and I come to this one, sorry, just getting confused between the different regions. Give me a second. Sorry, just getting myself ahead here. Let me get out of here. 3.4. Okay. If I see my JCL here, and I do a view of this, and I've just shown you this to see what's changed. And I'm in the wrong region again. I'm really sorry. I should be in this one. Okay, so this is where I wanted to be. You see, I can specify I want select type all. I can specify the time and the date that I want this to be collected. So you can see here, I've got the date, the start and the end date. I've got the start and the end time that I want to specify here. I'll make sure I've got all of this in my screenshots that I set up so you can see this. And then as you can see here, I can specify any range of different things I want to look at. Do I want to look at LSR pools along with file? Because file and LSR tends to go together. Do I want to look at connections? Do I want to look at storage or program? You can see, see what's available here. Or I might think to myself, really, I want to focus on web services. So I want to select pipeline, URI map, and web service. Give me all the information about my web services there. Okay, so whatever I print out, I'm looking for different values based on what I see in terms of the output. So when I go to my listings here, if I look at my transaction, all right, now the only thing you need to be aware of is that the stats tends to print out things that you may not immediately understand. So if I do, for example, attach, if I search on attach, I want to know all of the transactions that have been attached. And so we can see here then the attached of these the attached count of all the different transactions I've been using. You can see here CEMT has been attached 25 times. So what this will tell me is the amount of attaches that are happening for each transaction. And remember, all terminal control goes through the attach process. They go through the transaction manager domain. So they're all attached transactions. So if I'm focusing on a particular transaction or a series of transactions, it may be I want to know, did this transaction run? I can simply do a find on that transaction because I saved the data. If I come down after attach, okay, I'll come all the way down, you can see it lists all the transactions here, okay. If I do a find on file, okay, you can see it's got all the files listed here. So it tells me the data set type. I'll just go across. It gives me whether I'm using record level sharing. You see there's no coupling facility being used here for that. And all the way down, I can see what type of requests are happening. For LSR, if I've got my critical data sets in LSR, what it will do, and you can see here for my files, you can see, get, browse, update, add, you can see all the values and the things that are happening. What it also gives me is my wait on string. You can see here that these are the performance information that I see here, wait on string, and what buffers I'm using. So if I'm LSR, I shouldn't have wait on strings because I specify a large number of strings based on the LSR pool. But in LSR, I don't have a report of that, but it will give me the look-asides. And the look-asides is how much in percentage terms did I find the record in the LSR buffer pool rather than actually do a physical IO. And in my view, if you're finding the record in the buffer somewhere around 85 to 90% of the time, then I think you're doing very well in that terms. So because it means then that, you know, more often than not, you're getting that record out of the buffer. You're not going and doing an IO for that. So just something to bear in mind. The other thing to bear in mind is the connections. Every time we file a connection, it means that allocate did not happen. Again, I can't show you that here, but it'll be what's called a failed allocate. And the failed allocate means that whatever you've specified for your connection sessions, it means that you don't have enough sessions at that particular moment in time. So again, with your trend analysis, if you can report on that, and just going back to here, you can see I can look at connections, okay? If I see failed allocates here, I know that at that moment in time, I didn't have enough receive or send sessions to satisfy the current demand. Obviously, I don't want to have that because now we're in a wait state until we get a particular session allocated to us. So again, I can write a REX procedure based on the failed allocates and build up trend analysis on that particular area of it. Always remember that if we fail an allocate, CICS builds an AID and an automatic initiate descriptor. That goes on the dispatcher chain. And what will happen is that then terminal control will keep being asked, is there a particular session available? So the AID might not last for very long, but you don't want any of them. So LSR, storage cushion, your TCB allocations, and your connection requests, you really want to start, you know, doing trend analysis on this so that you can build up your own information as to what's happening. So the only thing you'll have to really get to understand is that how to read then the DFH STUP output that I've shown you here. If I come back to this one, all right, if I just specify file, I can just specify individual ones. You know, I don't need to specify them in combination. You can see here what the report gives me, or I can just report on everything. But just bear in mind, I can say, well, just give me everything here. And so it'll give you what was sent out to the JES spool. But in this case, it'll give you everything, you know. So if you want to see a kind of a kaleidoscope of information, you want to see a much more panoramic view, then do a collection of all. And I always think all is good to start off with if you've got time to really analyze it, because all focuses you on those individual areas that you can then run through in terms of doing those selections. So if I do all, or I do the connection, then I can focus on these areas here. And I've put them in here so you can see what we can get. This isn't everything that you can report on. I'll just put a few things here that you can see. And then I broke them into different major areas. If you're doing web services, you can look at the statistics on those web services there. So really, I hope that's given you an insight to collecting statistics. We could talk about performance characteristics. I've got a performance and tuning class that I run for CICS, so you can always talk to Verhoff about running that. But if you want any training, then certainly Verhoff would be the one to go to, Verhoff training, and talk to a guy called Matt Nation, N-A-T-I-O-N. You may already know Matt, but he can give you some ideas of what courses we can run for you within the CICS arena and make sure that they're all valid for you. So I think we're getting close to 25 past the hour. So if there's any questions, then I'll take them now.
Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, then if they can type them in the chat box, then I'll read them out to Colin.
I hope that wasn't too much, you know, but I hope that's given you an insight, and I will have, as I say, all the screenshots and that within a few days, hopefully by the beginning of next week.
Yeah, brilliant. I must admit, I've got almost a page of notes here, and
Yeah.
some that I can even still read because I was scribbling it down so quickly.
Good.
Have you got any questions, or shall I move on? I'll pause just for a moment or two in case anyone's got anything they want to type in.
Do find me on LinkedIn. Do find me there, Colin Pearce. I'm in the UK, so you should be able to find me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to accept you.
A lot of the people here aren't in the UK, though, of course. But
well, I'm just saying that if you want to find my name and you look at the UK, just in case there's more Colin Pearces there, you want to find me. But okay, so you can see my photograph there. So it's the same one under LinkedIn, so you should be able to find me. And feel free, I'm happy to help out in any way I can. And like I say, I've written many articles. I've written articles on ThreadSafe. I've written articles on RACF, installing RACF security in CICS, articles on VSAM, articles on good programming techniques in CICS. So, there's been a whole range of things. I'm happy to help out.
Okay, we've got a question for you. So this says, does running the stat job or trans take high CPU?
No, it doesn't, but you got to be careful. Obviously, any kind of data that you're collecting that adds to your tuning is going to cost you. I mean, I wouldn't leave the CEMN on. I mean, it may be that your monitoring is on anyway. So when you go into CEMN, you'll see monitoring is on. And so you're collecting type 110 records, and that's probably what's happening. You may well be collecting performance records that go out to type 110. But for your statistics, it really is, looking at those areas. If you were getting short on storage and you know that that's possible, then what you want to do is run the stats maybe towards the end of day and just see how many times the cushion was released. If you're implementing ThreadSafe, you may want to go and look at the TCB allocations. But over a short period of time, you don't need to run it for hours. You just want to collect all the statistics that CICS has collected anyway and have a look and see what's going on. I mean, it's not as though you're looking at a kind of a delta. The last time I ran my stat, you're looking at what happened ever since this CICS region came up, all the statistics that are being collected. So yeah, keep it reasonable, but you don't need to overdo it. You're just looking at those areas, those times when you want to collect that critical information. And in the end, after a few times, you'll build up when is the best time to do it and how you can need to restrict it.
Okay, you may have touched on this, but is it recommended to collect stats in a production region when there is a performance issue going on?
I would think that you already know a lot about your environment before you get to production. That's one answer I can give you. But if you are getting short on storage in production, then really your stats will give you every time the cushion was released. So it's already costing you if you're having a performance issue. Running the stat will just give you that additional information. But like I say, don't run it for long. You just need to run it to collect the current stats and either send them to SMF or send them to the JES spool so you can look at them there. Right, but really production should be free of these sorts of issues, although they can happen.
Okay. Oh, hang on, got another one. Sorry. Any stats that address RLS, since many shops have moved from LSR to RLS? Yes,
your file control stats will tell you whether you're using RLS, and if you're using RLS, then you'll give you the number of reads that you're doing. The only contention there is that if your file is still in LSR, so you're probably using LSR and you're probably using RLS because of you want the individual record. LSR, of course, is to do with your buffers. You specify the number of buffers based on CI size. So they can give you a conflict of interest. That's why I say that in LSR, if you're reading the looker size 85 to 90% of the time, then I think you're doing very well for your internal buffer. But in terms of RLS, you want to make sure that you're using it. And I agree, a lot of sites are now running record level shearing. But you want to look at your file statistics to see for those RLS records where it says RLS yes as against that file, just look at the number of reads that's happening, or the number of accesses that's happening, and it's all record level shearing covered by the SMS vSerm address space. So yes, you can, but it can be a little bit misleading if you're doing LSR as well.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I think looking at the time, if anyone's got any more questions, you can send them to me. My email address will be on screen in a minute, and I'll pass them on to Colin, and I'm sure he'll get back to you as
yes, like I have in the past.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, well, thanks very much, Colin. That was, as usual, very detailed, very good. So thank you. And because we're a virtual user group, can you assume that you're getting your virtual round of applause now?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time to attend. It is appreciated.
Okay, no, brilliant. Great stuff. Let's move on. I only got a few more things to talk about, and I'll go through them quite quickly. In terms of news, no one sent me any press releases for new versions or new releases of anything. Just need to move that a little. As for articles, well, there's only been one. It was called CICS Security, TLS Enhancements, Updated CICS Documentation and More. It was written by someone called Trevor Eddles, and it was put on Tech Channel. Those of you who attended last month's or last time's meeting will probably be very, very familiar with the contents of that article. Feedback requests, well, that's there to ask you for any feedback about this meeting. Anything you think we can do better, just let us know. And there's my email address, trevor@itech-ed.com. So that's the one you can use to send any questions for Colin. Right, coming soon then. Our next meeting's on the 16th of November when we've got Ezra Gross. He's Principal Solutions Advisor, IBM Systems CICS at Rocket Software. And he's going to be discussing debugging CICS storage violations using IPCS. And the meeting after that is on the 11th of January next year. Gosh, it seems we've only just had summer and we're talking about next year. But at that meeting, we've got Wendell Lovewell. He's the developer at McKinney Systems, and he's going to be discussing CICS application development, diagnosis, and tuning. Oh, just a reminder that we're all over social media. We've got a Facebook page, we've got Twitter, we've got a LinkedIn group. If you use social media, then the hashtag to use is hashtag virtual CICS. And remember, we like likes. We've also got our YouTube channel where the recordings go. And I was telling Colin earlier that YouTube have told me if I can get 100 followers, I can personalize the address of that particular channel, which would be rather good. Okay, well, that's it for this meeting of the virtual CICS user group. Can I thank you all for attending? Thanks to Hostbridge Technology and Rocket Software, who are the people who sponsor our user group and make it possible. And of course, I particularly want to thank Colin Pearce for his presentation. So that's it. Thank you all very much for joining the meeting. And I look forward to seeing you all on the 16th of November. So thank you all and goodbye.